Luke was once a lonely, miserable prince who torched his own kingdom to fix it. Now, he's a professional weakling at an all-girls school. One day, Luke was chasing a cat but ended up taking a high-speed plunge into the ladies' bath. When he tried to smooth over the voyeurism by giving her Blessed Physics a 5-star review, she skipped the thank you and opted for a disgusting creep scream instead. It turns out his only real royal duty was proving he could fall for a girl faster than his former empire fell to its knees. Rotting in a cell, Luke was approached by Kohler, a girl who couldn't care less about his excuses but seemed very interested in his long, black sword device. She stared at his weapon with a fascination that made him wonder if she was checking out his stats or just the size of his hardware. Before he could offer a private demonstration of its features, he was hauled off to the headmaster's office to face the music. Luke quickly realized that in this school, everyone was obsessed with his device, even if they thought the guy holding it was a total loser. At the office, the secret was out. The ugly pervert was actually the prince of the dead empire of Acadia, which is basically like being the king of a dumpster fire. The headmaster offered him a job because she figured a school full of thirsty students could use a sturdy guy who knew how to take a hit. Luke tried to play hard to get by refusing the gig, but she reminded him that a sword like his isn't just for scratching his back in the shower. He might have lost his throne, but the headmaster was betting he was a professional at handling a lot of heavy female pressure all at once. Suddenly, Lisha, the girl whose assets he had just appraised, burst in, screaming about his legendary groping melons disorder. Her classmates backed away like his hands had a built-in GPS set for the nearest pair of curves, terrified they might be his next victim. The headmaster, clearly enjoying the chaos, let Lisha challenge him to a duel. Win, and he works. Lose, and he rots in a dungeon. Lisha was determined to punish him, unaware that a guy with a groping disorder is usually an expert at getting a feel for the competition. The headmaster warned that Luke was the weakest undefeated, a title that basically means he's too annoying to actually lose a fight. Unfazed, Lisha revealed she was the princess of the new empire, the same one that curb-stomped Luke's kingdom into the dirt 5 years ago. She promised to humiliate the trash prince in front of everyone, proving that her empire was bigger and better in every way. She wanted to show him the power of a new empire, but Luke was more interested in seeing if her imperial assets lived up to the hype. At the Colosseum, the barrier went up, and Lisha immediately started mocking his basic-looking wyvern compared to her divine drag ride. She laughed at the sight of his little pet, showing off her massive cannons like she was trying to compensate for something. She promised to tell him her real reason for the challenge if he won, though she looked like she'd rather blast him into next week. Luke stood his ground, knowing that while her ride was divine, his was built for high stamina performance under heavy stress. The battle turned into a firestorm as Lisha unleashed her mighty blasters, asking if he liked it rough while she peppered the arena with explosives. Luke dodged her tiny dynamites like a deadbeat dad avoiding child support, apologizing for his cultured idiot behavior while her face turned a lovely shade of rage purple. Even after she blasted his sword, he refused to pull out his big weapon, making her more frustrated than a girl on a bad date. The princess was exhausted and fuming, realizing that no matter how hard she blasted him, he was the only man who could stay up this long without even trying, and imagined the fight being a draw. She wondered if that was the reason they called him the weakest undefeated she, drew her sword again and told him to save his last words for the devil. Then she activated a divine skill and summoned a heavenly voice, which set Luke's crashing to the ground with a massive earthquake that destroyed the entire arena. She then tried to land a final attack with her tiny dynamites as she suddenly lost control of her drag ride. At that moment, they heard the sound of a flute which caused the barrier to disappear, and they encountered a fearful abyss with red, menacing, glowing eyes. An announcement was made telling the Tri to evacuate all the students immediately and create a barrier encapsulating the abyss. Still, the abyss sent red flying darts at the barrier, shattering it completely. However, Lux began to attack the abyss, and while he did this, he asked Lyart to go to the ground level and target the abyss while he lured the enemy to the target. Since he could not defeat the abyss alone, he instructed her to open fire as soon as he gave the signal. Lux fired at the abyss, which the monster evaded. Unfazed, The Abyss went after the princess. But as Lux tried to prevent the enemy from going after the princess, he lost the arm of his drag ride. However, this opened the door for Lard to unleash a powerful fire blaster that completely defeated the monster. As Lux came crashing to the ground wounded later that night while Lard had her bath, she couldn't help but remember how Luke saved her being the first time a guy tried protecting her. At the same time, Luke suddenly woke up from a terrifying nightmare and saw Lish Hart with a bowl of water surprising him. As he asked her if she'd come to take care of him, she responded that it was because he saved her. However, she mentioned that the reason she challenged him to a duel was because she couldn't let him get away with seeing her plot in 360p. The perverted idiot apologized and told her he actually saw in 4, and she's got a nice plot shocking her, but she said what she was talking about was the crest of the former empire engraved above her floodgate. She warned him, however, not to tell anyone about it, to which he swore on his sword device he wouldn't. After that, she informed him that he would be attending the academy as a student and they would be classmates. To his amazement, the next day Lux resumed at the academy. He introduced himself to the class as they wondered why he looked like a completely different specimen. He walked across the class to find his seat and he came across this girl with mighty cannon the size of his head and immediately knew the cannon seemed familiar. He realized she was his childhood friend, Filthy, so he decided to sit beside her and ditch the other females with flat chests making Lart red. With envy during the school's break time, all the girls fought asking for hand service, but he told them it was one after the other. Lisha approached him and requested an exclusive service. She wanted him to be her assistant and caretaker, shocking everyone who wondered why she would like a guy to do that. However, with no more dignity left, she thought to herself that it was no big deal, since he had seen her plot before. Anyway, Filthy stood up with her, teed his cannons, and warned her to leave Els alone. Just then they posed for a plot battle. Lisha wouldn't budge and tried to bribe Filthy with a dun nut, knowing she was a useless glutton, but she still didn't stop telling her to back off. Crew Cypher suddenly appeared just in the nick of time to save Lux from the two desperate nutcases. While they were outside, he thanked her and asked why she had helped him. She inquired about the Black Hero, the unknown lone drag knight who drove the former empire to defeat, whose identity has been a mystery, to all leaving Lux in shock. She rued him to look for the Black Hero. The next day, he went to the repair shop to request his repaired wyvern, which was damaged during the fight earlier on, and shockingly discovered that Lisha was in charge of the repairs. She showed him his already repaired wyvern, which shocked him even more, and she informed him he would be joining the school's M Squadron, a special unit consisting of only the best cadet, and handed him a sword. He hesitated at first, but later agreed to do his best. Later that day, Lux and Lisha walked around the city and they headed to the top of Tower to have a good view of the city. Luce pointed out how much of a worthy queen she's by being able to repair drag rides. Still, she responds that she is not worthy of being called a queen because the former empire held her hostage for her father's sake, who participated in the coup. They tortured her while she was abandoned by her father and also branded a crest just above her floodgate. The next morning, the bell rang and the Night Squadron cadets were dispatched to suppress a large-size abyss attack. However, Lux was worried because 2 abyss attacks had occurred within a short period. At the site of the abyss attack, the cat had surrounded a giant slimy substance, with Lisha ready to attack an ugly dude. Suddenly blew a flute that caused the giant slimy substance to emanate bright glowing light inside it, which caused it to explode. The explosion of the giant slime caused several ferocious abysses to emerge, and then the ugly dud introduced himself to Lisha as Velvet, Akkadian Empire. KN Squadron Chief, he blew the flue again, and the abyss began to attack. Lisha fought back, and they blasted each other. One of the female Kados arrived back at the base and informed Luke and Eri that there was a serious problem on the battlefield. Luke grew eager to go save Lisha, as Eri warned him that he couldn't fight with his outdated wyvern and would need to use his other black sword, but he assured her he would be fine. Meanwhile, at the battlefield, Laia summoned the Heavenly Voice skill, causing a massive earthquake. She then beckoned on the remaining cadet to know if they were okay, but they informed her they needed to retreat. She told them she would need to annihilate Velvet, who was playing the flute because the flute manipulates the abyss. Soon the abyss fire. Their missiles dart at her, and while she dodged them, Velvet smacked her to the ground and called her an annoying. He revealed the crest on her belly and laughed like an ugly clown, after which he admitted he was actually the one who engraved the crest upon hearing these words. It angered her as she tried to unsheath her sword, but he flung it off her hand and it cut his face, upsetting him. Then he resolved to end her as he stroked his sword. It was held by Lux as he began revealing TOA, how he was a useless failure of a prince, but has now decided to help her become recognized as the new empire's queen. Utilizing his distraction, Velvet cut off his wyvern's arm and asked who his face was was. However, Lux activated his black sword device for the first time and transformed into the Black Hero. Shocking Velvet, who wondered how the loser came across such a wyvern, he smacked Velvet around like a useless ball, and then he began to reap massive damage to the Abyss. At that point, it dawned on Velvet, who recognized him as Lux, the Crown Prince of Acadia, and wondered why in hell he was fighting against him, as they were supposed to fight for the same purpose. Before he could conclude his thought, Luke summoned Reload on fire, dealing the final blow that impaled him a few days later at the Academy, but he felt it was a complete waste of time, as she was totally flat and had no plot to even hold the story. Still, he was worried she might spill. To his surprise, she kept it a secret. A few minutes later, after the other girls had left, she told him he didn't have to hide anymore. As the time for the competition had passed, she asked if the envelope was intact, and they gave it to her. But you soon realized that she had deceived him by manipulating the time and telling him the time was over. Just to get the envelope from him, she revealed that she had him for a week to do her every bidding and starting. Now she would want him to be her boyfriend for a week the following morning, the status of her engagement, and announce it, so she wanted him to pretend as her plot partner. However, Lux told her he wouldn't want to associate with an ugly still. The next day, Crucifer took him to a clothing store to get some expensive wear, as he'd always been known to dress like a homeless broye with zero fashion sense that evening. While they searched for a restaurant to eat, they were feeding them in one shot each, and Filthy appeared, and Luke's wondered what their ugly faces were doing there. While they had dinner, she mentioned to Altera that Luke's was her classmate and boyfriend. Just then, a random dude named to decide the ultimate alpha male, but Crew CER suggested they pair it up instead. She and Luke's team up against him and Al Tessie, which was settled and the duel fixed for 3 days. Before long, Baride held a conversation with a mysterious man in his chambers, who informed him that the key needed to access the depths of the ruins was already in his hands, referring to Crucifer as Barzer. Ride laughed like a deranged clown in a castle. Far away, the 4 great nobles were summoned for an urgent meeting regarding Ryok, a powerful abyss awakened with powers concealed in the ruins. They all suggested they have to prepare for that occurrence. As the new empire isn't yet strong enough to face a Ragnarok, one of the 4 nobles suggested they keep investigating the ruins in order to suppress Ragnarok, and would like his son Barzer to lead the investigation of the ruins at the same time at the academy. The headmaster gathered the Night Squadron Cadet and informed them of the need to investigate the ruins. She revealed the acquired horn-shaped flute and pointed out that this might be the key to entering the deepest parts of the ruins, as she handed it over to Lux to be in charge. Lux cited Crucifer and wondered why she was attending the meeting. Even though transfer students were prohibited, he went after her. But she informed him she would be joining the investigation team the next day. Just as the cadet prepared to set out for their investigation of the ruins, Instructor informed them that Baride would be participating, shocking everyone. As the arrogant face stepped in and introduced himself, Lisha demanded to know why they was joining them in investigating the ruins. Barzer told her she should have trained her ugly face instead of her combat skills. He assured her he was there to protect his future wife, Crucifer. He was also the head of the investigation unit. Just as they got to the ruins, Crucifer immediately moved towards it, leaving the others behind. Suddenly, a powerful, monstrous, ripped abyss called Diabos appeared. It immediately lunged towards one of the cadets, but Lux quickly intercepted and collided with it. The collision almost crushed his wyvern Drag Knight, but Lisha fired her laser cannon at the abyss to save him. They fired their weapons at it, but the abyss shrugged off all the attacks at ultra speed. However, Baride told them their efforts were as useless as Lu's face and intervened with a powerful laser blast. Crew Cypher soon appeared and immediately charged towards the abyss as she summoned Wise Blood, but the abyss evaded it, leaving her in shock. Shortly, the blast of their weapons collided as the Ab's fiery blast overpowered her, black and nearly burnt her to a crisp, with flames powerful enough to roast even the devil. But she was saved, just in time, by Lux. The abyss continued to dodge all the myriads of attack they unleash at it. With ultra speed, Barzer Ride suddenly summoned an axe and made a direct hit, causing Diabos to self-destruct while emitting a very bright light. The cadet managed to protect themselves from the blinding light by summoning a barrier. At that moment, Crucifer's Fafnir suddenly lost control as the ruins glowed upon seeing. This Lux immediately proceeded to protect her, but they both got sucked into the ruins. He suddenly woke up in a strange place and wondered where he was. Crew Cypher replied that they were pulled into the ruins after the explosion. She thanked him for saving her, and then suggested they head to the altar at the center to regroup with the rest of the team. While walking, she fell from exhaustion, so Lux offered to support her. As they headed to the altar on getting inside, Crucifer walked up to the center, while Lux brought out the flute with the intention of blowing it, as he thought it was the key. As Kruer approached the entrance, the center suddenly got activated and emitted a bright neon light, shocking Lux. Then he discovered that the flute wasn't the key after all, and Crucier wasn't human, but a survivor of the ruins. And was the key, suddenly a violent earthquake occurred. Luke sprinted to rescue Cruer, but they found themselves trapped further inside the ruins with no place of escape. Crucifer narrated to Luke how her father found her in the ruins and adopted her just as they talk, and bonded Lisha drilled a hole into the ruins bigger than Crucifer hole. With her drag ride later that evening, Crucifer gave Cassie the red envelope as she didn't want Luke to be involved with the mess going on in her life. She faced Bearer Ride, and Altera, alone as Barzer Ride, inquired about her boyfriend and partner, but she insisted she had to send him back to fight alone. Just then, Barzer Ride summoned his drag ride as Altera readied herself and planned on summoning hers. Barzer Ride instructed her to sit it out as he drained her of all her cosmic energy. Knocking her unconscious, the battle kicked off with an explosive exchange of shots. Barzer Ride soon realized that Crewcapper's Fafnir could predict his moves, and cunningly he started draining her powers. Without her noticing, Crucifer became frustrated as her attacks mysteriously missed even with her powerful Wise Blood spell. Barzer made a direct hit and knocked her down with a brutal axe strike. At that moment, Luke hurled his sword at Baride, who dodged it, narrowly escaping his ugly face as a pancake. Baride recognized the black hero, Drag Ride, and called him his who ran away for years, only to reveal his true identity for the sake of a worthless girl. Elle responded and told him she was important to him and threatened to slice his ugly head. Luke summoned Reload on fire, charging at full speed, yet Barzer Ride's barriers held strong, revealing that he had stolen Crucifer's Wise Blood, enabling him to read Luke's every move as Baride fired his lasered gun. Luke unleashed his divine shield and was grabbed in the arm by Crucifer, who drained his power. Barzer Ride unleashed a beach of attacks on Luke and landed his mighty axe on him, but it collided with Luke of Blade as they charged at each other. Barzer launched a series of blasts at Luke's, which he shooed and charged at him with his blade, but was blocked by Barzer. Ride's shield, Luke's drag ride, started blinking wildly as he began to lose control. At that moment, Crucifer urged him to stop as she wept bitterly, but Luke's was resolute to fight on for the sake of their worthless love. Just as Barzer thought victory was within his grasp, Luke's activated Recoil Burst, an incredibly powerful move that obliterated Baride. Several weeks later, Luke's disguised as a hideous drag. Queen sneaked around the school at night, but he was met by the instructor, who warned him about a stalker lurking in the shadows.